We have to get into this. What is Saturnalia? What is the winter solstice? Why do we celebrate it? What is Christmas? Like,
who was Jesus? What?
Well,
what? Yeah,
we know who Jesus was. Isn't it?
Do we? He's a carpenter and a rapper.
They called them poets back then, didn't it?
Yeah.
But we know
what
Jesus
that really
was a
means.
rapper.
Yeah, Jesus was a freestyle rapper.
Kendrick Lamar, you know what I mean? He's depicted Jesus quite a lot in his, you know?
It's been a lot of, yeah. I think big rappers get a messianic complex, don't they?
You Can Hate Me Now, Nas. Who did he?
Yeah.
That whole thing about being on the cross and all that. You know what I mean? That he weren't having it. He didn't want to do it, or he did. I don't know. But it seems to always be thrown in there as well. Jehovah. See it there? All right. So why?
Anyway,
let's find out why.
We're straying too far from Christmas.
We got some special guests. It's all linked, man. But this is the thing. You know what I mean? When we get into that syncretism world, you realize like all these things are kind of linked up, and there are hidden meanings to them. So this is why, as always, man, one of our favorite guys to come on the show, and he's brought a special guest with him as well. We're going to get into this. If you strap yourselves in, if you lot can't handle it, please, you know what I mean? Just get the puke bucket, you know what I mean? But this is going to be a wild ride. Shout out to Robbie Love in the building. Please welcome him, Mem, DVG. What's going on, bruv? Do I get the...
All good, man. Thanks for having me on again, Mice. And yeah, looking forward to this one, because this is...
It's always appreciated, bruv. Definitely.
Yeah, this one's something that, how can I say, like this whole subject in itself kind of is one of the main things, or the first things I came across when I got into looking at astrology or astrotheology or occultism, the whole like Jesus story and what it really meant and what it really symbolizes. So yeah, what we can do today is I've got a whiteboard with a diagram. I can share my screen and go through some pictures.
Sick.
I've also thought today, just to make it a bit different, I've got some books that we can go through and read, like some different perspectives on like the story. So like this is the Hiram Key. This is like a book about Freemasonry.
Hiram Key. So Hiram Abiff, is that related to Hiram?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So yeah, this like I'm gonna read something. There's a chapter in here like about the Gnostics' view on like Jesus and the resurrection story, and because obviously that is to do with the winter solstice, that like the sun resurrecting, and we're gonna get into it all in more detail anyway. But so I've got that book that I want to like read a few pages from at some point. Then I've also got this, which is just an actual astrology book.
Practical astrology.
I thought it would be suitable to read about the sign Capricorn, because obviously this whole celebration is based on the sign of Capricorn, and the sun being at the Tropic of Capricorn. So I thought it'd be interesting to maybe look at that as well. And I've got this, which is called Shamanic Egyptian Astrology.
Oh, wow.
And I thought it'd be good to look at their view of like Saturn and Capricorn and see how they looked at it. And also I've got this book, which is the Maya Cosmogenesis 2012, because obviously December 2012 is Capricorn season and the solstice season as well. So that whole 2012 correlates with that as well. And also I'm going to share my screen and show you guys some stuff from Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. And he talks a lot about Christianity and the sun, and I like the different myths. And we're going to look at the god Pan and the goat, and you know, Baphomet. And that's what, like you said, it just connects on so many different levels. But I think personally the best way to start it would be on a more like, how can I say, like a scientific level in relation to how the sun works and the seasons. And that way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring my board, and I can show you that way. And if it's not clear enough, I can share my screen as well and show you on the slide.
Yeah, because that's what people, whilst you get that prepared, that's what people need to understand, is that it's to do with the time of the year that we're in, and where the sun is at that point. And so now you hear some of the, you got the winter solstice, and obviously people are, it's been cold, it's getting cold, it's gonna get sort of colder in a way, and you've had the shortest day of the year gone by. The days are getting longer, but still, you got to remember that people were seeing things die during this time and feeling like, oh, maybe this is supposed to happen, because some of us don't, some of us do, and they might get put in that sort of place where they're like, okay, maybe we're supposed to sacrifice things at this time of year. And so, but it all kind of stems back from what he's about to show in terms of, where the sun is, and it being in Capricorn. And so you got things like, people talk about like how the goats survived this time of the year, and they were always at the top of the hill. So people just looked at them like, wow, they're amazing. We can even eat them as well. But yeah, man, go ahead, man.
Yeah, so can you guys see my board, yeah? Yeah, so obviously, this middle line here is the equator of the, so this is the equator of the Earth. This is what is known as the Tropic of Cancer, and this is the Tropic of Capricorn. So ultimately, what the sun is doing every year is going up and down, up and down, up and down. And obviously, when the sun is in different parts of the Earth, it's hotter in that region. So when the sun's up here, which is closer to us, this is our summer season. But when the sun is down here in the southern hemisphere, like near South Africa and Australia, that's our winter. So that's when we get darker days. So then basically the whole Jesus and Christmas story is just based on the journey of the sun. So Aries, the first sign here, this is, well, that's there's actually two start points. You've got Capricorn, which is now, which is a secular starting point. So it's to do with more of like earthly things. And then you've got a starting point, which is spiritual,
right,
which is Aries.
Yeah, I'd always been confused.
Both of them can be starting points, but the true starting point is Aries. Well, technically, any point is a starting point because it's a circle. But obviously now, like in today's world, we generally know the start to be Capricorn here in January.
Yeah, but they've made it like that, right? It used
to be here in Aries in April, hence where we get the whole April Fool's thing, is that the Romans used to call the English fools because they didn't change their calendar from April to January. So that's where you get the whole April Fool's like myth from, if that makes sense.
Okay. So because you're saying that's because the English changed theirs to January, or because
no, the opposite way. The English changed theirs after.
Okay.
The Romans changed it first.
Yeah.
And the English didn't. And then
they
did
it.
Finally. Because they didn't, that's where the whole April Fool's thing comes from. But I'm kind of bearing off the subject here.
Well, it's like saying conspiracy theorists, did it? It's like putting people off wanting to be what.
So ultimately, what the Jesus story is about is the sun's journey through this wheel. And obviously, it starts here. So you got 1, 2. So these are called cardinal points. A cardinal sign is the first sign in each season. So this is Aries is the first sign of spring. Cancer is the first sign of summer. Libra is the first sign of autumn, and Capricorn is the first sign of winter. So obviously you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a cross. You can see the cross.
Yeah.
in this chart.
Yeah.
So that's ultimately all it is. So it's the sun being crucified because it goes from spring, summer, autumn, and winter. So now we've got to the winter solstice. So hence why God's son gets crucified. It's just a symbol of the son's journey through this wheel. And it's a symbol of the 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So that's like that's the most simple way I would explain that, basically. So ultimately, when the sun gets, and also this is the southern, like I said, this is the equator. Below the equator is the southern hemisphere, and above the equator is the northern hemisphere. So ultimately, from a northern hemisphere perspective, this point, when the sun gets to this point, it gets to its lowest point. So ultimately, from that point, it can only go upwards.
Yeah.
So then that's why Jesus, the Son, is resurrected after 3 days. Because once the sun gets to this point here, it stays on the same latitude for 3 days. You know what? Can I share my screen and show you? Because I think it will be clearer.
Of course, man. Yeah. All right. That's good. Yeah.
Can I do that?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right. 1 second.
That gets deep because it's like what you were saying about that cross, and then from left to right that's the equinox. You know? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I'm going to show you that in a clearer diagram now, because there's too much information on that diagram, and it might look a bit confusing to people. So I'll rather show you guys it clearer. I think you guys need to let me share screen.
Yeah. Hold on. I've got to keep turning around.
Jeez, we're here with DVG going in. He's breaking down something very interesting.
Yeah, because ultimately I have to show you clearer to understand, the 3-day resurrection, because Christ got crucified, then he was resurrected 3 days later. And I have to show you that on a diagram. It will be clearer to show you. Because basically the 3 days is once the sun gets to that lowest point in the sky, it doesn't move, it doesn't go down or up for 3 days. It rises on the same latitude.
Yeah.
And then on the 25th, it moves 1 degree north. So then that's why the Son, or Jesus, is born on the 25th.
Try that.
Okay.
So that's why he's born on the 25th, because it's 21st.
Does that make sense?
22nd, 23rd. So
22nd, 23rd, and then 24th, and then obviously, let's go back. So where are we? So we can you guys see my screen?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, right. There we go. Let me just put that down. So you can see here, Tropic of Cancer, Equator, and Tropic of Capricorn, right? So the sun obviously rises in the east, so it comes from here from the right, and it goes all the way across, and it just keeps doing the same thing basically every day. But each day it goes down a degree. So if it's starting from up here at the top, it's gonna go across from right to left, but each day it's going down a degree basically. Can you see my arrow? Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically it's going across like this, but each day it gets lower and lower and lower and lower and lower and lower until it gets to this part where it says the Tropic of Capricorn.
Yeah.
But then it just stays on that line for 3 days. It doesn't go higher or lower. From the 22nd to the 24th, it stays on this latitude. And then on the 25th, when it starts going across again, it will start making its journey back upwards. So then towards the northern hemisphere, and then when it gets to the equator is when our spring starts, which is when we then start celebrating Easter.
Yeah.
basically.
Mad,
and obviously the reason why they've used a goat for the symbol of Capricorn, because it's a symbol of the sun climbing. So they've used a mountain goat as a symbol of it climbing, basically.
Yeah. Wow.
Because that's when the sun's resurrected. So that's why that part of the year, Capricorn, they've used a goat, a mountain goat, to symbolize that. So because obviously the goat's got to climb back up to the top of this hill now. And then when you come up to here, it's a crab, which is the Tropic of Cancer. And then the crab starts waning and going back downwards. So that's why you got them two animals that represent the tropics, because one starts waning and going down, and the goat starts climbing and going up. But they're both just symbols of the sun.
Interesting, yeah.
Which is what all the signs are, all the signs of the zodiacs. Then, like, people have to kind of, especially with tropical astrology, like, it's not really based on the constellations. It's based more on the time of the year, if that makes sense. So this, from now and the next 30 days, because the sun's going to start climbing up towards the northern hemisphere, that's why it's the symbol of the goat, basically.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense when you say it like
that. That is, that's like the basic symbology of it, basically. But to get like deeper with that, each sign is ruled by a particular planet, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is like the planet of death and about restrictions and boundaries and learning lessons. So that's why Jesus got killed, because it's relating to the whole energy of Satan and Saturn, which is where we get the whole like Saturnalia and all these celebrations as well.
And so Saturn
and also death. The two tropics, you got the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Well, the Tropic of Capricorn is known as the gateway of the gods, because the sun starts climbing up towards heaven. But then when you're at the Tropic of Cancer and the sun starts going down, that's known as the gateway of men, because they say, because souls come in through the portal of the moon, which rules Cancer, and then souls go back out towards heaven through the rings of Saturn, which is at Capricorn. So then you've got that symbology to it as well.
And you've got Old Father Time.
Exactly. Father Time
at the end of the year, who's got
Zeus,
and he's
Zeus
he's called the Old Father because he's the old father of all the gods. So
exactly,
Old Father.
Yeah. So like
cutting things down, cutting stuff down with he's got his egg timer. The scythe and the egg timer to symbolise the turning of the year or whatever. All these signs of Saturn, satanic symbols.
Yeah.
And so then, go
ahead, Mice.
Well, then, because you mentioned Saturnalia, like obviously that has the word Saturn in it, so it sounds like that was some form of, what was it, like a ritual celebration? What was it?
Yeah, I guess it was like, from my understanding, it was like the build up to Christmas. It was like they used to have like mad like orgies and do like loads of crazy stuff. But I think Lindsay was going to talk a bit about that. So I'll pass the mic over to Lindsay and see if she wants to chime in.
Yeah, let's get Lindsay in, man.
Saturnalia.
Is she there?
Lindsay, you there?
I'm here. Hi.
Yes.
Hi. What was it? The crystal lady. Yeah, the crystal lady. Yes. Hey, good to have you on, man. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Very happy to be here. I did extra Saturnalia research for everyone this afternoon.
Oh, wicked. So this is what we wanted to talk about. Is like what?
Pretend like I know this off the dome, but I'm happy to do some research.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
So at the same time that like the Yule celebrations were going on in Northern Europe, like 1,000 miles away in Rome, in pre-Christian Rome, we had Saturnalia going on, and it was like a total reversal of social order. They closed down all the courts. It was a time of slavery, and the slaves were allowed to go dine with their masters and even boss their masters around. Wow. So it's like when we think about how Saturn is associated with karma, it was like a celebration of sort of turning karma inside out, right? Like the slaves become masters, the masters become the slaves, that kind of thing. But as I realized through studying it, it was like, by turning social order inside out, they actually reinforced their control, if that makes sense. Like, it was like, it had kind of like the purge vibes for the entire, you know, couple of weeks surrounding the solstice, like building up to it. You know, you could get away with things, but you also couldn't. Like if you were a slave and you tried to act up, you might be able to get away with it. You get what I'm saying? But there was still, it was like, in allowing them to act up, they almost reinforced the social control that they were all under the other 11 months out of the year.
Order out of chaos.
Kind of interesting.
Wow. That's crazy. So doing that, and obviously like the thing of, that's what I heard, was they made the slaves could then become the masters for that day or for however many days, or they'd make like drunkens in the street, give them the crown for the day and things like that. And it's like, okay, so the idea is what? Is to kind of get you feeling like, oh, they are trying to look after me. And then bam, you're a slave again after that, whatever, 2 weeks or whatever it was. After you've been raped and whatever else. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
It went on for 500 years or so. And over the course of that time, you know, sometimes it was longer, sometimes it was shorter. You know, the celebration evolved, but there was always feasting. The whole point was that they were going to feast like, they're going to pretend like the harvest wasn't over and feast like there's no tomorrow anyway. That kind of thing. They're gonna, the research I looked up said that like a lot of different gods and goddesses that were worshipped were claimed to have been born during that period. Like Dionysus was claimed to have been born during Saturnalia, for example. And Dionysus was the goddess of wine and partying, right? Like also known as Bacchus. So
Bacchus.
It's, yeah, that's the same person, you know, just Roman versus Greek. Yeah. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting is that they said that gift giving was like mandatory during Saturnalia. Like, you had to give gifts, and it wasn't just like you had to give gifts to people that were close to you. You had to have some kind of little gift for every person you came across, or a little poem or something. And it literally said that the people would spend the majority of the month building up to Saturnalia preparing to give these gifts. And I was like, I can see how they still do that to people today with Christmas and capitalism. And like, people will destroy their entire monthly budget just to give these gifts. And it's very interesting to see the parallels.
It's almost like they've made it, like when you say it like that, it sounds like it got to a point where you'd be looked at a certain way if you weren't preparing for it properly because everyone else is. And then literally, and that's now kind of translated, and that's now kind of translated to all the adverts on the TV, you know, all these, whoever walking around with their big bags of shopping. That's in a way, in a sort of sense, it's making you feel guilty for not doing that. And so you end up going out to do it. And that's just, you know, you're paying into the capitalism idea. Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Saturnalia.
Now, just to add, you said capitalism. Obviously, that correlates with the word Capricorn as well. So, yeah, I just thought I'd add that in.
Wow. Yeah.
That makes. And it's also interesting how essentially, like, we see through the capitalist Capricorn holiday of Christmas now, and how back then through the money spending Capricorn holiday of Saturnalia, they were basically like, through the holly and jolliness, they were keeping people away from knowing the true power of the season. Like, all this celebrating is sort of like bread and circus to keep you from knowing what kind of shadow work you could really get done this time of year.
Right.
But a lot of the more pagan type people around the same time, the people who weren't living in the cities, the ones who are out in nature, that's more what they were practicing. And that is where the Yule log comes from. It's from pagan tradition. Yeah, it is a big phallic symbol. They straight up lit a wood dick on fire for 12 days and fed animal sacrifices and did it. You know, it's the same concept of fertility that we see through Saturnalia to a degree, because of course they were encouraging all kinds of orgies and crazy shit during Saturnalia. But there's just a lot of like crossover. And then even after Rome brought Saturnalia to Britain, the government sanctioned Church of Rome couldn't control y'all's Britain pagan parties that were already going down anyway. So it all just got lumped into Christmas celebrations.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
What we control them, it's fine. Just let them do it for Jesus now. It's fine. You know?
Just hide it behind that, you know, hide it behind all of that. So they think they're still putting the same energy into those days, those moments, but they think it's for something else, while you know what's really going down. Whilst they got the Yule log there, slicing that dick up and eating it, you know what I mean? Chocolate. What is it? I swear it's just the roly-poly. What do we call it?
Swiss roll.
Swiss roll. It's a Swiss roll. That's just, the Yule log is a Swiss roll. Well,
there was no slicing originally.
Jesus, man. And the mince pie is like, what did they mince up, really? What was really going on there? Saturnalia, you're talking about mince meat. Jesus.
Lord have mercy. Mem and I are vegan talking about.
What's interesting, you know, like the whole, you know, like the hanging up of the stockings and that like tradition of Christmas, that's like based on actual like stuff that was taken from like shamanism. They actually used to hang up like mushrooms, like, you know, the Amanita muscaria. That is the red one, right?
The red and white, red and with the
red,
white,
yeah, the red and white one. The hanging up of the stockings actually comes from the shamans who used to hang up the mushrooms to dry. So there's also like that element of like Christmas, which is like taken from like pagan and more like shamanic traditions as well. I actually did a show with someone on that who had a lot of good information on that a couple of years ago. If anyone wants to check that out, it's called The Occultism of Christmas, and it's with a guy. I did it with a guy called Stavila Elohim Ra, and this was like first when I started doing YouTubing, and he talks a lot about the Yule log and like the mushrooms and like the whole like shamanic influence to like the Christmas season as well. So like there's so many different, like we were saying at the beginning, there's so many different little angles and different cultures that, yeah, it's like kind of what Lindsay said. It's just like the British just said, like, put it all into one big mixing bowl and just said, here, there you go, it's Christmas.
And that would be the British after the Romans sort of infested it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, ultimately, the whole story, like I said, it's just, yeah, all of it's a play on the sun and like the journey of the sun. And was it Dan that mentioned the carpenter earlier?
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, because that also correlates with Capricorn as well, because Capricorn is the sign of the mason and the builder, because the motto of Capricorn is I build. So that like relates to the whole like Jesus the carpenter and stuff like that, and the whole him being born of a virgin is like based on the whole like Pisces and Virgo axis. I know that's not to do with the solstice, but because we're in the age of Pisces, basically opposite Pisces is Virgo, so that's why. And Jesus is Jupiter in Pisces, and Virgo is opposite Pisces, so that's why Jesus is born of a virgin. so to speak. But that's I'm just adding a bit of extra stuff in there. But yeah, like the Capricorn thing is just like it is a starting point, because it's just, but it's like based on, how can I say, it's based on the sun, and it's more based on the earth, whereas the Aries starting point is based on fire and spirituality. Because also, if you look at like the word December, for example, dec means 10. Like in Greek, deca, like it means 10. So December is actually the 10th month, not the 12th in the astrological calendar.
Yeah, it makes
I don't know if you guys were aware of that.
Yeah, like decimal.
Yeah, exactly. And also, Capricorn is the element of earth, and and also if you look at the word deck or on the deck, it means on the floor. So even that word, like etymologically, connects with the Capricorn season because of deck being on the deck. Because Capricorn is an earth sign. It's about materialism, money, and because in astrology, in the 10th house or the 10th sign is ruled by Capricorn, and that's about your public image and making money and being a boss. Basically, hence why it's ruled by Saturn, because he's the boss. You know what I mean? So, like, also another like interesting symbology you can see in British politics when it comes to number 10 and Capricorn is 10 Downing Street, because it's number 10 on a black door, and also the 10th house or the 10th sign in astrology is about politics. So like they have like even that encoded in like the whole 10 Downing Street thing.
The
many
boss.
People don't know, but that's just another like extra little element like added to it, like, if that makes sense.
Which has a rising sun above it as well. The door.
Sorry.
The door at number 10 has got the rising sun rays above it.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
It's got like a sort of semicircle made up of.
Yep, that's right. Like the little arch, basically. Masonic arch. Masonic arch. Because ultimately, like, that's what, like, you see, like, for example, now we get in, like, this is the shortest day of the year from a Northern Hemisphere perspective. Hence why the sun is the death of the sun. Because the sun is in the Southern Hemisphere, to us, it only does, because it's further away from us, its rising and setting is short. So that's why you get short days, because it's further away. But then as the sun gets closer to us, the arcs get bigger because it's coming closer to us. So the rising and setting goes longer, hence why we get longer days in the summer. Yeah. So that's based on why the sun supposedly dies on the 25th and then resurrects, because the light that we get from the sun is very minimal at this time of the year. So again, that's the more like seasonal kind of astronomical or scientific way of looking at it as well. Jordan Maxwell and Santos Bonacci do a lot of good videos on this subject. So and they go into a lot more detail than I would, because pretty much I learned a lot of the stuff I know from them.
Yeah, people definitely got to check out their work, man.
Yeah, but what I want to do now is let me read something about what I was just telling you about, you know, like how the arc is like shorter in the summer, longer in the summer and shorter in the winter. I want to read something from this, which is called Maya Cosmogenesis, and they speak about that. So I'm just going to read that to you, if that's all right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, go in, bro.
So, yeah, this is from page 72 of Maya Cosmogenesis. So where are we? 72. 79.
Yep. So after 10, there's some shit you might not never know nothing about, mother lovers. You know what I mean? We're here with DVG and Lindsay breaking down. It's a weird celebration we have.
Where are we?
Called Christmas. Mixed in with a little Yule tide, a sprinkle of Saturnalia. When does Black Friday start? I swear Black Friday might have something to do with it.
Black Friday was that a month ago? The Friday after Thanksgiving, isn't it, in America? It's like the last Friday of November. Is that right?
Oh, the last Friday of November. Yeah. Okay, so it's still a bit early, but
no, it's done already.
Kind of getting you ready for
Black Friday's
Saturnalia. Yeah. It's like it's getting you ready for it. You go and commit some debauchery, buy some bullshit.
Yeah,
that's it. Now you're in Saturnalia world. You don't even realize playing on your stupid ass PlayStation game. Yes, but there was a thing about the you said Lindsay was saying something about shadow work. That's it. What you're supposed to do around this time. What would that? How would you be able to explain what that is to people who don't know? Sorry, they might not never know nothing about the shadow work. Before we get into the reading, DVG.
I think just the easiest way to say it is that when it's the darkest time of year outside, usually you're forced inside physically. And all the things that you like to go do outside with all your friends kind of get shut down. And you're forced to spend a little more time with yourself. You are given the opportunity to go inside, to turn inward for a couple days. And instead we have these holidays in place that force us to just go harder, even harder, like go to the holiday party, buy all the gifts, be in your family space. And it's wonderful to do all those things. But at the same time, this is a period every year in the Northern Hemisphere when nature is telling our bodies to slow down and chill.
Deep. It's true, you know.
What can be is literally just listening to your body and being like, you know what? I'm going to stay home tonight.
Yeah. Instead, you're out there, yo, you want to go go shopping? I got to go visit. Go. Wow.
And people handle staying home with themselves for not one night. That's why they go to the bar every night. That's why they hang with their friends. They can't sit with themselves. We're gifted a whole season to do it every year. And it's wonderful. I'm not saying you should turn into a hermit, but there's balance to everything, but there is a gift hidden. And I mean, I am a sunshine girl. I love being out with the community. I love being in the sun. I love the warmth. I don't really like this time of year, but I can see the balance and I can see the gift built into it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can really get some personal work done. Pardon my French, fuck a New Year's resolution. Like Mem said, this isn't even really the new year anyway. That's more an Aries season kind of thing, if you really think about it. But this is the season when you can take time to rest so that you can refocus and actually put your work into stuff that matters. Like whether it be they force us to focus on self-improvement because these concepts of like New Year's resolutions, but really it's like, who are you doing it for? It's a good time for you to do good things for yourself, basically.
Wow. They flip it, they invert it.
No shame in doing something good for yourself, especially if it means you're going to be able to help everybody else out more. Then it's just a good thing.
When it's time to spring into action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bam. Winter's there. Most animals, like, they're out there hibernating. Like, bruv, I'm just going to bury these nuts over here and cotch for the next 3 months. You know what I mean? Build, get your body back in, replenishing. So, yeah, right. But they switch it on us. We're out here eating, drinking. Jesus.
All those animals use winter to lose weight. If you think about it, they come out the other side of hibernation like slim, like trim and ready for spring. They've got to pull a woman, or got to pull a female in spring. So they're like, I'm going to spend all winter getting myself spring body
chiseled.
Yeah, get myself.
I was hibernating into chisel mode, bro.
I was also thinking of the opposite of what Mem was mentioning about the Cancer Capricorn pole, and how if it's a polarity, it means we have opposites on either end. And if Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, we know that it's inherently got masculine energy, right? Big Daddy Saturn is masculine energy, right?
Yeah.
Opposite end of that pole, we have Cancer season. And during Cancer season here in the States where I live, they have the most patriotic holiday of the year. They go extra masculine during period when we should be like on some summertime moon shit. Instead, they're all swinging their 4th of July dicks around. It's not cool. They found a way to dominate both ends of the pole with masculine energy and to pull the feminine out of both sides. You know, like during Big Daddy Saturn time, you can have this Cancer energy by staying at home, right? That's Cancer energy. And the opposite, during Cancer season, when you have this motherly season going on, it's sunny and gorgeous outside. You're out and amongst the people. There's balance built into the poles naturally. And it just seems like we're always getting pulled into the more masculine energy of the balance to serve a certain group of people.
But you do have spring and Halloween on those two opposite ends as well, where you have, you know, like Easter, and so you have like the estrogen and the Halloween for witches, you know, so you do have this sort of light and dark of feminine in those periods as well.
Also, you think that like feminine energy is more associated with like the equinoxes instead, maybe?
I don't know. I'm just saying it is interesting. You have those two where you just have witches at one end of it and like birth at the other end of it.
It's like two polarities.
The two ends.
That's very well observed, Dan. Makes a lot of sense what you just said.
But the equinox during Virgo, not during Scorpio season. Scorpio season, we've already entered the darkness for the witch holiday. And the interesting thing is the reason that witches are associated with that holiday is because of Italian grandmas.
Italian grandmas.
It's a can of worms for a different holiday. We'll talk about it sometime.
Right.
But that's really the only reason that they got associated with the Halloween holiday is American capitalism taking the look of the Italian strega, the nonna. I'm Italian. And that's why the witches have green skin and crooked noses and ride brooms, because if you look up the history of the witches of Benevento outside of Naples, there is a witch history in Italian culture, and has, you know, of course, Scorpio season, as it's getting darker, there's a very magical special essence to that. But like Halloween's kind of its own thing. And they literally just jacked Italian witch culture for corporate profit pretty much.
But you also, after the Old Father Time on January the 6th, you also have La Befana. So you've got the witch coming in then, just after the New Year. Yeah,
that's right. And the volcanoes have been exploding. They've been going off.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
Has an Etna been active?
I don't know. I don't really keep an eye on the news.
I know one of my volcanoes. Family from Sicily, and I have family from the Naples area. And one of those volcanoes has been going off since November.
Oh wow!
Since the season. Wow. That would be Vesuvio. Somebody needs to give La Befana a really good treat this year. Listen, they better be good.
There might be a big sacrifice coming up. All right, let's get into this, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. So all I was gonna do was just kind of back up what I was saying about the arc of the sun being smaller in certain times of the year, and I'm just gonna read it from this book, which is called Maya Cosmogenesis.
Maya Cosmogenesis. And it's Mayan.
So here it says, at tropical latitudes, the sun's daily and annual motion is much different than what we observe from Seattle, London, or New York. The tropical zone is delineated, by the Tropic of Cancer running through the northern Mexico and the Tropic of Capricorn running through Chile in South America. The US and Europe are at northern latitudes, and when we watch the sun move through the sky during a single day, it It traces an arc to the south of us. It rises in the southeast and sets in the southwest. On the December solstice, the arc is very low in the sky, and on the June solstice, the arc is much higher and longer, accounting for the longest day of the year. But still, at our northern latitude, the sun never passes through the center of the sky. It always makes an arc to the south of the zenith. The sun can pass through the zenith only within the tropics, and the exact dates of the solar zenith passage vary with latitude. So ultimately, I'm just kind of backing up what I said about the arcs being smaller at and bigger at different times of the year. Of the arc of the sun, I'm saying, when we see it rise and set. Hence, now we're seeing it a very small arc, which is why we don't get a lot of light, and hence why it's the death of the sun. So this was just like a little passage to back up what I was saying, basically.
Yeah, I appreciate it, bro.
People don't think I'm making it up.
No, but it makes sense when you know, show us it on the map. It actually makes sense. Like, that's what's happening. Like, of course, and that's why, you know, the times get colder, the days get darker, and at the same time, imagine what that would have been like, you know, way back when you couldn't rely on your central heating or your little electric blanket and all that.
Yeah,
I know D's got electric blanket.
Yeah. Because even, you know, like Stonehenge.
The emergency electric blanket.
No, what I've got is a 7-watt pad that you put in reptile houses. They're really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, really good. About that big. And it's got like, you just plug it in and the whole thing just heats up, and it's only 7 watts. You just stick it in your bed or whatever and just...
bro, we gotta go old school, hot water bottle, man.
Do you have a little furry bag for the outside of it as well?
Furry hot water bottle bag, boy.
Hot water bottle, Mice. Go to bed.
A little grizzly bear. That's hilarious, man. Ben, what was you going to say? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying Stonehenge. When I went to Stonehenge a couple of years ago, the tour guide guy who was there explained to me that, like, obviously people go there on the solstices and the equinoxes to go and celebrate them. But he said that specifically it was built for the winter solstice, Stonehenge.
It was.
And apparently they used to go there and sacrifice pigs. And that's very interesting because obviously Capricorn has a lot of like sacrifice energy like built into it, obviously with Jesus getting sacrificed and the sacrificial goat and whatnot. But I remember the guy when I went to Stonehenge, he said it was specifically made for the winter. That like set of stones was specifically made for the winter solstice. He was saying how true that is, I don't know, but I'm just sharing the information.
So what, during the winter solstice, was there something happening there that, you know, you could kind of, that would help clarify that then, or confirm it?
Yeah, basically he said they used to take pigs and slaughter them there.
But the sun, because I heard people talking about when you're there at the solstice, or maybe it's the equinoxes, the sun will kind of cast through.
Oh yeah, there's particular lines it will cast and particular shadows. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. That's
right, yeah. So like yeah, so it's just basically all like the winter solstice is like, it is almost like a reset, I guess. It's just like it's a time where like right now the days will start getting lighter, so we're gonna have more light, more energy, can do new things. Do you get what I'm saying? So in some way it does make sense of why the new year can start at that point. Does that in relation to the sun? So although they've changed it from Aries to Capricorn, it still works because it is the lowest point that the sun gets to in the southern hemisphere, and then once it gets to that point, it's going to start coming back towards us. So,
but I feel like it's part of the inversion, the way they've kind of messed up our sort of natural, sync with the world or the earth. Do you know what I mean? And so
that's what I was saying. It's more of a secular celebration rather than like a spiritual or a mystical kind of, because like I said, because Capricorn is the element of earth, whereas Aries is the element of fire. Fire is to do with like spirituality and mysticism, whereas Capricorn is to do with like materialism, basically. So like
earthly possessions.
That's like ties into what we were talking about with the whole like eating loads of stuff and doing all this crazy thing like in Saturnalia. So they're just two different it's like I remember Santos saying in a video, he's saying like the goats go to the left and the sheeps go to the right, meaning the sheeps would be sinning, and no, the goats would be sinning because the left hand path is sin and the right hand path is spirituality. That's why, you know, Baphomet, he's got his arms up like this in the like diagonal. One of them's going down and one of them's going up. So his right hand is up and his left hand is down, because the right hand is signifying the right hand path and the one going down is signifying like sin, basically. So that's the whole like balance thing. With, you know, like the symbol of Baphomet where he's holding up his hands.
And they say as above, so below, and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So like all of this symbolism is all based on just the cycles of nature and how nature works. And like, this is what like people don't understand, like with tropical astrology, like especially people who are into like Vedic astrology, they'll say, oh yeah, but tropical astrology is wrong because the constellations are not aligned in the right place. But what people don't realize is that tropical astrology is not based on the constellations. It's based on the relationship of the sun and the relationship between the sun and the earth, and where the sun is at particular parts of the year creates particular energies on earth, and those signs or those symbols are symbols of that energy. So like I've mentioned, the winter solstice is symbolized by a mountain goat because it's a symbol of the sun climbing towards the northern hemisphere. So that's why they've picked a goat. That's why they've symbolized that time of the year by the goat. Whereas Aries, spring, a ram is very like up front. So it's about the sun springing from the bottom up to the top and creating more light. And then each animal or each symbol symbolizes the energy of that time of the year. The lion is the ruler of summer. Well, obviously, the lion's yellow. It's got a mane. It looks like the sun.
The roaring sun.
Yeah. So, although it's like philosophical and allegorical, it's still true because that energy is symbolized by that animal, and they have a like correlation. It makes sense. Do you get what I'm saying? It's not like. But the thing is, the sun at that time of the year in the sky may not necessarily be in the constellation of Leo because of something called precession, which I'm not going to get into because it's very technical and it's a lot of mathematical sums for me to explain it, but we can talk about that
another time,
like another day, basically. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, like, the way astrology and works is through associating particular energies with particular parts of the year, basically. And that's all it is, like, in a very simple way, if that makes sense.
But how it's sort of interpreted, how you explain it, is using the signs that sort of
basically. Or you could, me and Lindsay were talking the other day, like, you don't even need the signs to explain it. For example, you could say, like, you're either spring 1, spring 2, or spring 3, which would be Aries, Taurus, or Gemini. Right. And then you've got summer 1, summer 2, summer 3, which would be Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. Do you get what I'm saying? Because, like I said, because it's not necessarily aligned with the constellations itself. It's just each one of those sections are like different notes along. Just think of a piano key, and each key is a different note. That's just the same with the 12 signs. They're just different frequencies that the sun creates at different parts of the year.
Yeah, that's deep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so from that you can see how it correlates to people born around that time of the year. And also, even like the fact that there's some people, they tell you their star sign, you're like, yeah, you kind of do look like a goat, man. Or yeah, you do look like a lamb or a ram.
Yeah, like,
you know?
It's true. Capricorn people, if you like study medical astrology and like physiology, Capricorn rules the bones. So Capricorn people Capricorn people are known for having, you know, like the hook nose. That's a very Capricornian thing. And also Capricorn people are known to be quite bony because, like I say, in medical astrology, Saturn rules the bones and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn.
Yeah. Old Father Time is definitely bony.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Old Father Time is definitely bony. He's just like a sort of skeleton. He's a skeleton.
Yeah, for real.
So yeah, but it's just literally bones.
But what, you know, like what you were saying, what Lindsay was saying about, like, this is a time where it's like time for us to go in and kind of analyze ourselves and like maybe it is like a rebirth time. Do you get what I mean? Because this is why a lot of people have like New Year's resolutions, so to speak. I know it's a bit like of a commercial way, but it still ties in to the theme and the energy of Capricorn and like being rebirthing and climbing the goat to get to like the top of the mountain, and you know, like people start gym in like New Year and people go on a diet, or people like obviously New Year's resolutions. So
you've got re-soul in the word as well, re-soul. So the re-sun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Resolution.
There you go, bro. So like but the thing is, like, when it comes to like religion, unfortunately, people have taken this story literal, and we just don't know the true meaning of it, which is like the annoying part, like what you was talking about earlier, like people just like going out buying presents and like they're doing it just because everyone else does it, but don't know why they're doing it. Do you get what I'm saying? And like this is where kind of why we do like what we're doing now is because just to explain the origins of where these celebrations come from and why we do them. Because, for example, once I found out all this, it's not that like I think like what Lindsay's saying, if we celebrated Christmas like on a spiritual mindset and really understood what it was about, maybe it could be a time where we could help ourselves, whereas it's been like flipped and it's kind of just a time of like spending money and like eating loads of shit and like feasting. And do you get what I'm saying? Like there's poles to everything. You could use it for a good thing, but unfortunately we use it for more of just a material thing. It's not necessarily evil.
It's been hijacked though, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, it's just hijacked and it's been made to benefit a particular group of people.
Yeah.
Basically. But what I was gonna do, if you guys don't mind, is read something from here.
Yeah, man.
And like this is like from like a Gnostic perspective. Like Gnostics were like early Christians who like they like read the scriptures as like metaphors and allegories, and like they saw it as like they didn't see it as a literal story. They saw it, and I just want to read what they said about like the whole Jesus resurrection, if that's all right.
Yeah, man.
And obviously it ties into like I'm going to read it all anyway. It's a couple of pages.
Yeah, man. Big up King Chico, Mr. Green, Low 3. All the crew locked in right about now, and we're going in deep. My man DVG, and we got Lindsay. Yes, let's go in, bruv. All right.
So we ready, yeah?
Hiram key, yeah?
Yeah, the Hiram key, yeah. This is page 49. It's called The Gnostic Resurrection. So it says there were major differences between two early Christian traditions concerning the truth behind the resurrection of Jesus. In the Gnostic work Treatise on Resurrection, ordinary human existence is described as a spiritual death, whereas the resurrection as the moment of enlightenment, revealing what truly exists. Whoever grasps this idea becomes spiritually alive and can be resurrected from the dead immediately. The same idea can be found in the Gospel of Philip, which ridicules ignorant Christians who take the resurrection literally. Those who say they will die first and then rise are in error. They must receive the resurrection while they live. The description of a living resurrection reminded us of the subject matter of the Masonic third-degree ceremony and encouraged us to investigate further the cause of the row over the literal truth of the resurrection of Jesus' body. There are major consequences of a literal belief in the resurrection of Jesus' body, which later ascended into heaven. All the authority of the Roman Catholic Church stems from the experiences of Jesus' resurrection by the 12 favored apostles and the experience which was closed. Obviously, the 12 apostles are the 12 signs of the zodiac. It says it's restricted the leadership to a small circle of persons who held a position of incontestable authority and conferred on this group the right to ordain future leaders and their successors. This resulted in the view of religious authority, which has survived to this day, that the apostles alone held definitive religious authorities and that their only legitimate hires are priests and bishops, tracing their ordination back to that same apostolic succession. Even today, the Pope derives his authority from Peter, the first of the apostles, since he was the first witness of the resurrection. By the way, Peter is Jupiter, Jesus. So that's another connection etymologically. Just to finish off, it says the Gnostic Church called the literal view of the resurrection the faith of fools, claiming those who announced their dead master had come physically back to life, confused a spiritual truth with an actual event. The Gnostics quoted the secret tradition of Jesus' teaching as recorded in his speech to his disciples in Matthew. To you it has been given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. So I just thought I'd just read that, and it was just how the Gnostics viewed the whole resurrection story, and they didn't see it literally, and they understood that it was more of a metaphor for spiritual growth and like ascending, basically.
It's that we're talking about, isn't it? A time where you actually now look within and start building upon, what you can better from the last year, what you can better, and then bam. And I feel like it's probably meant to take like 3 months, like 3 star signs, and then you spring into action, because then you've really, you've really taken the time to like plan everything methodically, as opposed to, oh, here's my New Year's resolution, and then January the 1st, you're like, oh man, I'm too mashed up to go to the gym, man. I can't, it's not that, innit? You're trying to recover from everything. Like, this is the time of the year that you're probably going to get ill because it's cold. You're going from hot to cold, so now you're detoxing, you're shedding, you're getting rid of all the shit that you've probably been stuffing yourself with over the summer, over autumn, and all that.
Yeah, resolution also means to like return back to a state that it was in previously.
Yeah, resolution.
To resolve something. So, you've always got, and it's New Year's resolution. So it's like a new year, so you're coming back to the beginning of a year again, and then the word resolution means to return back to the state of something how it was before, so both words basically hint at the same thing, don't they? Is that you've built up all this stuff in the year, and then you're like, right, I'm going to stop doing that now, just I'm going to start again, start
but
fresh.
but in the same time, as well as it being personal, it's like as within so without, because it's happening outside in the universe with the sun as well. So the sun is starting its new journey as well. So like it correlates on so many different levels, which is what is frustrating with mainstream society, that they don't. I wouldn't mind if people celebrated Christmas and whatever, but it's a shame that we only understand it from a literal perspective and not from a higher perspective, or knowing what the underlying, rather than taking the story literal, like we need to take the moral of the story, rather than whether Jesus lived or not is besides the point. What is the moral of the story ultimately? That's what we need to take from these stories, and understanding what it's about. And also, while doing that, you understand how nature works, because this story is just a story of nature and how we work. Because like how I said, for example, like astrology is in the body. So like it's got Aries at the top, and then it goes down to like Pisces. So it's like going from hell to heaven, like from hell into the promised land, basically. So there's all these like motifs, like in the Bible, like the promised land is up here.
Yeah, see, even that goes to show. Like, look, the beginning is Aries. That's where it starts at. Yeah. So if you want to, what I mean, at the head. And so if you want to be ahead of it, that's the time that you step out. Yeah. Same like how they got us paying our taxes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
January 31st, but then they start it. It's like, what the hell, man? Why are you starting it on 1st of April?
But really, when you think about it, that's an interesting point you brought up about the taxes thing. Because you would think that would be now, because now, like, Capricorn is about money and possessions and, like, work and all that stuff. And Aries is more religious and spiritual. But they've flipped it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Wouldn't it be because Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is to do with, like merchandise and transactions and all that in it?
Yeah, I would say Mars is more to do with like action and like taking action, and Mars is like the planet of war. So I don't know.
What were taxes originally raised for?
Yeah. Yeah,
I suppose. So, you could look at it that way as well.
Pick them all up in March.
Happened in March,
something that I haven't. Do you get what I'm saying? When it comes to looking at the symbology of it. See, I never thought of it that way, because I always associate it with more of like a spiritual thing, because of the element it's attached to the element of fire. Because Aries is a fire sign, whereas Capricorn is an earth sign. So Earth is to do with the material possessions and money and stuff like that. Whereas that's how I'm making my connection with that. But at the same time, you might be right in you're seeing it from a different perspective. So like we all see things differently, and it don't like you've kind of enlightened me on something. So yeah, why not? It could be for that reason. But and also like Capricorn is like the kneecaps basically in the body.
Kneecaps.
So you start from like that to like from there, rather than starting at the top. And also it's like,
see, even that, like the way you said it, it was a bit weird. It's like you start from the knees as opposed from at the top. It's like you meant to start from the top, man.
Oh, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, bro.
That's all right. That's all right. Capricorn. It will come back to me anyway. But yeah, is there anything you wanted to ask, or you wanted me, or if you want or if Lindsay wants to chime in, I don't know.
Yeah, if Lindsay wants to chime in. There was, well, it's in like what I'm kind of sensing there's a theme of, things being twisted, you know, like, so there is this form of celebration, or there was this way of looking at this time of year. And then now, everything's kind of jumbled up, whether it be even the time of the year that we're celebrating these sort of things, or how we're celebrating as well. You know, maybe the celebration should be more on a spiritual level during these sort of times, as opposed to on a superficial level of like, hey, look what I bought you. Look at, you know, that kind of, look what you're eating. Eat this and this and this and this, you know. So that kind of takes us away from what we could be doing, you know, because I found it interesting with that, where it was like, there were people out there that were, you know, they might have been in the woods, wherever, doing, you know, where other people are doing madness, they're like working on themselves, like realizing, look, there are other creatures out there that are just hibernating. They're just, you know, replenishing. There's like greenlands that now have become, you know, desolate. They're dead. Everything's dying, and then it will be reborn again in the springtime. And so I feel like that's what really, that period of time is what we should be doing. But then because we're out of sync with it, you know, it's debauchery. It's all kind of Saturnalia.
Yeah, it's like the ends become the beginning, basically. It's like there's a little, because like you said, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces in the astrological season is the last part of the wave. But in our like mainstream thing, it's the first part of the wave. It's like, do you get what I'm saying? It's like you said, there's been a kind of an inverse warped. Almost.
Yeah, it's made it all a bit warped.
Yeah,
in a way.
But I mean, the thing is, it's like a lot of the stuff like we're talking about obviously is based on a lot of like Roman and Greek and mythology, because obviously that's how it was handed down to us. But like they probably got it from like older civilizations like Zoroastrians and Indians and Egyptians and like different kind of cultures, all kind of not necessarily celebrated it how we do now, but they were aware of it and they were understood that it was like an important time of the year. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing about it, because someone mentioned about the fact, I think it was you saying that things, you know, some things are looked at as good, some things, there's a polarity in everything. So even though you've got like, Pan or Baphomet, the goat, you know, at the same time, you've got like the goat that's at the top of the mountain, you know, that's surviving through, you know, that you revere in that sort of light, in a positive light. And so I guess that's the same thing that can happen with what we're talking about. You know, like it's not necessarily always a bad thing being celebrated, or what I'm trying to say is it's not necessarily a bad thing to give thanks for the life that you do have, considering at this time there are a lot of people dying or a lot of things dying. You know, and that's the work that you could probably be doing on yourself and with others as well. You know, but it's all up in the air.
It's like, even for example, you know, like in the Muslim tradition, they like sacrifice a lot of like goats and lambs at a particular time to give to people, like to feed the poor and stuff. But ultimately, what like that probably means, or what it probably originally meant, was just sacrificing your bad deeds, like we do in our New Year's resolutions, to then, or sacrifice something from yourself that you don't like to start fresh. Do you get what I'm saying? But like, again, like just things have been literalized over years, and we do things literally. Like Santa Claus, for example, like we spoke about this before. Like Santa Claus bringing like you, like coming down the chimney to bring you presents is about, it's about biology, and there's something in your head called the Santa Claustrum, which releases an oil, and it comes down into your solar plexus and your sacrum area, and then if you don't squander your oil, which is like your sexual fluids, then that kind of raises back up, hits your pineal gland, and then once it hits the pineal gland, it takes 3 days to purify your blood, and then you're like reborn. So again, even that story is like based on like the whole Jesus story, and like Jesus died when he was 33. Well, you have 33 vertebrae. This is the 33rd. So when you come to your pineal gland, you get crucified. Your pineal gland purifies your blood, and then you're born again. So it's not just even to do like with the sun and like that. It's like it even correlates to us biologically as well.
Internally.
So, like, there's so many like I said, there's so many angles on this whole story. It's just, yeah, it just depends on what way you want to look at it. And it's best to look at it always, because when you look at all the ways, you just connect them and you just see that it's one. It's just like fractal base universe, how like the same pattern, but with different things, basically. So whatever's going on in the sky is going on in your body.
In that
and
sense,
whatever's going on in your body is going on outside of you as well. So,
and it's up to us to learn the language.
It's just understanding it all and like unifying it all and just making some kind of sense of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Because like you said, it's a lot. There's so many different like angles that you can look at it from and then go deep into as well. That it is, you know, it's kind of better for you to look at each one and then, you know, as you go along, like, you get a better understanding. Yeah,
well. But like, the thing is, the person I learned from, their style is just naturally to do that. So like, while you're learning about one, you're learning about the other anyway. So that's why, like, for example, in my board, I've got the body because it connects with the will. Because like, you got the whole Adam Kadmon thing with the man and like, do you get what I'm saying? So it just, yeah, it's weird, man. Like, it's a lot to take in. But then, like, once you understand like the basic principles of it all starts like making sense. And just like anything, the more you study it, the more you'll come to know it. Like, even me, like, for example, like, I know a lot of things, but I've only just started my research journey. I know it's been about like 10 years, but like, compared to other people, like, my knowledge is very minimal. But like, the more you do it, the more you'll just learn, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it's really interesting stuff as well. Do you know what I mean? So stuff that you wish they were teaching that in schools, but I don't want to teach us that in schools.
Yeah, it would defeat the whole system. That's why they wouldn't
like, we know why you're doing that.
Oh, what's the point? Like, if you knew about all this, you wouldn't, like, for me, now I know all this, it's like, I don't take things too seriously.
Yeah, you kind of know the cheat code.
I know what it means, so it's like the facade of it has gone out the window. It's just like, oh, really? It's Christmas, is it? Like, do I have to buy people presents and whatever? Like, but you don't even really know what it means. You're just doing it because, do you get what I mean? Not that I'm not saying that in a like arrogant way. I'm just saying it like, as in, yeah, it's just a shame that these things have been occulted for us. And it's just like, if you come across it, the way they've done it is, the way they've built the system is that, oh, fine, if you come across it, you come across it, but we're not going to tell you about it. Ultimately.
I think that's basically kind of what's happening. And then obviously there's loads of bullshit thrown out there just to throw you off anyway, to make you think like, oh, that ain't, you know, like the little you know, when they got your horoscope, little paragraph of horoscope in the newspaper, and you just read it like, oh, that doesn't, That's just to throw you
exactly. That's just like, I mean, if you read that and took astrology from that, it's just like, no wonder why people think it's like bullshit, because it's just like, it's so much. It'll be just like saying, I don't know how, I'm trying to use an analogy, like for example, there's people that say, oh, what do people get, like, you know, people that watch football,
yeah,
they say, oh, what do you get out of people that just like kicking a ball around? But it's not just kicking a ball around, there's like rules to it, there's a lot more to it, is what I'm saying. And like that's the same with like astrology as well. It's not just about you being a Scorpio, your sun sign. It's about the houses. It's about your moon sign, your rising sign, where the other planets are, if they're conjunct, if they're squaring, if there's oppositions. Like what I'm saying is, it's a complex science. It's not just some airy fairy thing that people say, oh, if you're a Scorpio, you're like this, or
you've
that's
got
like very, like you say, newspaper astrology.
Yeah.
Which is what they do to put you off, so you don't really understand it. Because once you understand it, you can decipher the bullshit.
Yeah.
They don't want you to decipher. Like, just say, for example, whether astrology, I'm just using this as an example, regardless if astrology was real or not, it is still beneficial to know it, because you can know what things are based on, or why things are the way they are. Whether you believe it or not is a different matter. Like whether you believe the planets actually have an effect on you or not is besides the point. By you knowing it, is you can just understand how this matrix work and how they base particular things on those particular energies, or they do things at particular times of the year, because the earth is resonating at a particular frequency. To, like, I always notice that straight after New Year's Day, there's always a bomb that goes off, or something like this, or like just to fucking bring down the energy straight away.
Well, I was thinking about, when you were talking earlier about it, I was thinking it's interesting because you go celebrate, hey, Happy New Year, and then the next day everything's still dead. The trees, there's no green. It's all, you know what I mean? Everything's still, yeah. When you think about it, like we're meant, we're meant to be celebrating. Hey, Happy New Year, New Year's resolution. Bruh, like the, you know what I mean? The squirrels are not hibernating. They're like, bruv, I ain't out here doing. Daffodils are like, nah, ease me up, man. I'm coaching, I'm waiting. So it's already, it's very twisted, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's what, you know, like Aquarius, the water bearer.
Yeah.
Like that's also almost a symbol of like the rain that comes before the spring to make the plants grow.
There you go.
And, do you get what I'm saying? So like,
think about that on a spiritual level from within. Yeah, you know what I mean, I've still got this argument going about the beginning of the year. I feel like the beginning of the year for real should be celebrated. You know what I mean? In the spring.
Yeah, that's for really sure.
Shout out to Black Einstein as well. He's been saying that for a long time.
Yeah. For sure, like, because another thing as well is when you look at, like, for example, like if I get this out again, like spring is equilibrium. It's like you're at a balanced point, but the solstices are not balanced. They're like at one extreme or the other. So it's not a balanced point. So that's another reason why you're right with the Aries thing, because this is 0 degrees. This is equinox, equal sun and equal day and equal night. It's balance. Do you get what I'm saying? Whereas here, you're at one extreme, really cold, and here is the other extreme, which is really hot. So it's not balanced at the solstices, whereas the equinoxes are balanced. Do you get what I'm saying? So yeah, they just play around. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why they can do all these things to us, because they understand the energies of how things work. That's why they can kind of shape society into a particular way because of their knowledge of this type of information, which we have a lack of. I mean, I know they say like ignorance is bliss. If you don't know any better, you don't know any better, which I can agree with to some extent, but it's like,
if you want to be played the fool, then that's cool.
Yeah, but like at the same time, like once you know it, you can't really ignore it after that. You have to just kind of, yeah, you got it. Although it's annoying, like knowing, oh, they do this because of this and they do this because of that. Fair enough, you might not be able to save the whole world or like say, oh, because you know, like when you first get into this knowledge, you're like sharing all this shit because you like get so excited about finding it out.
Everyone should know.
You start telling all these different people, and people are like, "Fuck off! I don't want to know about this." Or like you think, "All right, then, like I'm only trying to help, whatever." It's like once you get past that stage of it and realize, oh, this like it becomes more just for yourself because for you to work around, and then only thing you can do is kind of maybe try and be a good example or try and use it to help yourself. And then other people may see that and think, okay, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
definitely.
In terms of like trying to save the world with this information, yeah, you can do that. But as long as you do it in a way where you're not like force feeding it down people's throats and you're just doing it in a balanced way, then it's all good.
Well, I find like, and we spoke about this before, but once you kind of understand it a bit better, you realize that some people just aren't going to be into it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it's like, regardless of whether they are or not, it's still there and you can still, you know what I mean, try your best, like you said, to be and
just utilize it to your advantage at the end of the day. That's it. Like, that's all you can do. I mean, like Lindsay was saying earlier, like there's nothing wrong with people getting together and celebrating and having a nice time with your family, but why are you just like the system has got you controlled that much that you do it once a year on the day they want you to do it, rather than why can't you have Christmas whenever day you want? Or I know you can't because of the symbology of it or whatever. But what I'm trying to say is, it's like they've got us that controlled, is that we only meet our family on Christmas Day.
That's when you see everyone. And
yeah, like, or whatever. Whereas, to me, in a way, that's sad and it's fake as well. Because if you're true family with someone, you don't wait to see them once a year. I'm sorry. Like... I know, like, there's circumstances.
But they make
like,
you do that.
For example,
think about it.
People's parents live far away and this and that and whatever. But again, it just goes to show, like, it's almost like what Lindsay was saying with the Saturnalia thing. It's like, oh yeah, like, we'll give you a week and you can do what you want with your family and do this and do that. But then after that week, you got to go back to work and work for us so we can take your tax money. And do you get what I mean? So it's like they're almost taking the piss out of us in some kind of way.
So it feels like to me, boy. That's what it feels like to me. There's so many different signs there, man.
But, you know, like the thing is, though, with this type of information, you can either let it drive you crazy and you become an angry person and you start like saying fuck the world and all this, or you can just take it and just use it for yourself. And that is like what I would suggest to people. I mean, by all means, be an activist and fight for what the truth is and what's right and justice. But at the same time, just do it with balance. Like, don't do it to the point where you're going to get yourself in trouble and ruin your life because you was trying to save someone else's life. So,
but also without that balance, you might be fighting for the wrong things. You don't know. You might be fighting. You might be fighting for justice, but for the wrong things because you're out of balance. So you're not seeing the world in the right way. So you're just like going wild. Oh, this is the thing that we need to fight for, isn't it? You know, and it's like you don't really understand anything yet. You haven't really got that balance.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
But
it's like what I was saying at the beginning with when I first got into it, because I was new to it. I didn't understand that not everyone wants to hear it, and I'm like willy-nilly just like sharing it with everyone. And again, that goes like back to what you're just saying about being mature and being balanced in your way of thinking, for you to know whether to do that or not. So, like you say, we all learn in different ways.
And this brings us right back to resolve the conversation at the beginning. We were talking about when you're 30 and you go through a one life cycle, and then you're able to actually comprehend the world in a different way.
Because it is based on perception, isn't it?
There's a certain, I mean, there's like the hippies used to say, don't trust anyone under 30. But then there was a certain person in history who used to say, don't trust anyone until they've reached 30.
Wow.
Right, wow.
Certain politician.
Again, the reason that relates to the cycle of Saturn, because Saturn's cycle is 29 years. So like when you're like in your birth chart, when Saturn comes back to the same point where it was when you was born, you go through some kind of like major lesson or major transformation. And that's when which was pretty much like 10 years ago for me, which was when I got into diving into all of this stuff. So it kind of, how can I say, it happened for me. It may not necessarily happen like for everyone. Some people may just carry on normal when they're 30, but generally a lot of people I speak to do say that around that time of their life, they do go through like some kind of transformational period. Or
I did, and I know a lot of people around the same, around that same period. It's like a crisis.
Basically, spot on.
Just going back to the tax thing, the council tax, you don't have to pay it for January and February, do you, either? So there's like that period from like December to like March where there's like there must be something that they do that's like you have to have this window where it's like,
I know now you said that,
right, good.
I've just realised what that is to do with.
Right,
that's it.
That's to do with like the whole 9 months of Jesus being born from March to December.
There you go.
Now you've said that, it just come back to me.
See it there.
There you go. That is it.
Always a reason, man. That's why we got to start then. Everything should start then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
As soon as you mentioned it, it just kind of clicked to me, because obviously, like Easter is like the resurrection, in it as well, or like
that's what I'm saying.
Resurrection,
not resurrection,
but like the fertilization.
It's like it's like newborn or something like that, like the new life. That's why you got rabbits. Rabbits fuck the hell out of each other.
Yeah, it's like the egg, the whole
eggs. The eggs.
Yeah, like
open the box.
Because Easter is based more on the moon, because it happens at a new moon. Because that's why Easter's a different day every year, because it's based on the cycle of the moon, and the moon cycle goes back 10 days every year. So that's why it's always different. Whereas Christmas is solely based on the sun, which is why it's the same day every year.
Solely based.
Based.
Excuse the pun.
Jeez. We're going there, boy. We're going there. Okay, so what was it? There was because there was something you mentioned about even if people don't believe in it, and it's true. Like even if you don't believe in it, you're still kind of governed by it. Anyway, like I always say to people about Sunday and Monday, Moon Day, and Tuesday, like all the days being named after planets and whatnot, or deities that represented those planets as well. And then, and like that's not just in one language either. That's the same in like French or.
Because if you think about it, like because even what we do on those particular days connects as well. Like Friday is ruled by Venus. Venus is like the planet of pleasure. And then you've got Saturday, which is ruled by Saturn. Well, on Saturday, everyone gets up to very dark and mischievous things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, become a good boy, and then you go to church and you become spiritual, and it's Sunday, and you got to act like the sun. Do you get what I mean? So it's all there, like you said. Like it's just, it's built in, like you said, it's programmed into us, all this stuff, but again, like we're just not taking like note of it, if that makes sense. And also, I know I've mentioned this before, but all of like these energies correlate to like particular parts of the day as well. So like midnight, from midnight to 4 o'clock in the morning is the hours of Saturn, because that's like the darkest and the most quietest kind of time. Do you get what I'm saying? So like, and also, you know, like if you did you watch Squid Games?
Yeah.
No.
You know, like at the end, like if you like notice the symbolism, the guy was on the 7th floor.
Yeah.
And he died.
Oh, spoiler! I haven't seen it.
At 12 o'clock. So that's like the whole.
Yeah, he's not spoiling it. Don't you?
Saturn, Saturnian thing again.
12 o'clock, 7.
Like Father Time, and just everywhere, man. It's just, you know, like sometimes it becomes like when you get to like when you understand it, it's like when I was watching Hercules, and the movie Hercules. And then I thought, what's the point of me watching it? Because I know what it's about. Because Hercules and his 12 labours is about the sun going through the 12 signs of the zodiac. Do you get what I mean? But it's just, again, it's not kind of, it's just occulted. It's there, but it's not there, if that makes sense.
But also there's like an element of, you know, that not everybody needs to know this stuff, because it's not really going to change much about, you know, the way they live their lives. They're not really focused on that sort of stuff. Maybe it's not their time to be able to, you know, comprehend this stuff. And so the stories are just there to be, at least they're keeping these sorts of traditions and these, you know, these things alive for the people who've got eyes to see them, you know, whereas everyone else watches Hercules and thinks it's a really good film, whereas you could sit there and go, yeah, but that's Leo, that's Capricorn, that thing, you know, and then they'll go, what are you on about, you know? But it is what you're saying, but for them it's just a really good story, and at least it keeps it going, you know. It's an old story, it's probably like 4,000 years old or something, but at least it keeps it
from ancient Babylonian times where well, I think like there's an element, it feels like there's an element of like they put that out there for you to learn it, and there is some importance to it in some form of way for everybody, and whether they're into it or not is obviously down to their, you know, temperament, their character and whatnot. But it seems like, you're supposed to know this shit, you know what I mean? This is like information that could help you in some form of way. Because it is that element of, you know, like the as above, so below, you know, so things correlate and things relate, and you understand like, oh, maybe like Lindsay was saying earlier about Mercury retrograde. You realize like when people get into all of that and they realize like, oh, it is around the same time all of this madness happens with communication, or you're trying to start up something new, it just don't really work out. It's like, but when you wait, or when you know that this thing is happening and you just prepare yourself as opposed to actually go in around that time, things happen a lot smoother. You know, same way like if you know someone's, not necessarily you have to go deep on their birth chart, but you understand who they are, you know, when they were born and whatnot, and then you kind of like link certain temperaments and certain, colours that they might be wearing or whatever. You're like, oh, right. And you could kind of communicate a bit better as well, because you understand each other from the jump a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? So I think that there are points to it that are beneficial, but yeah, at the same time, maybe you're not into it, but it can still be beneficial for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I've come to the point, or me and Lindsay, whenever we talk, we always like say like, you're either meant to get it or you're not, and that's what the understanding I've come to now. Like, I don't kind of, oh, these people are so stupid, they don't get it, and like, which I used to have that ego, like mind state before when I first got into it, and think, oh, these people are so stupid, they don't get it, and blah 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 blah. But then I had to check myself and my ego and think, okay, like, you was like that once.
Yeah.
Like, about me, like I was like that once. Yeah, so like, then why am I being judgmental to people who are in like that? So maybe it's just not their time. They will come to it when they're ready. And I try to look at it in a more what is the word? Compassionate way, rather than being
judgmental,
smart ass about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Like, it's weird, like, that's what I'm saying. Even going on this journey teaches you a lot about yourself and makes you fix up on how you are as a person and makes you notice little things about yourself. Like, I'll just mention, like, when I first got into it, I had an ego about it, about other people not getting it and they're stupid. But now, this journey has helped me kind of make a sacrifice, hence what, like, going on the whole sacrifice thing. I've had to sacrifice that side of myself to become a more compassionate and understanding person towards the rest of humanity. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Lindsay, do you want to chime in on that?
It is about being, like, smart and about having knowledge, but it's just the way you work with it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, if you do it in a nice way, then it's all good. But if you're being an asshole about it, then you know,
you did have some asshole back, basically.
Yeah.
Pause.
Lindsay, do you want to chime in on what we're saying, or is there anything you wanted to share?
Any observations on there? We haven't heard from you in a minute. That's not right.
Well, I was thinking earlier about what we were thinking about with, like, the New Year concept. I personally have struggled with this idea of the New Year being in January for quite some time now. It doesn't really make any sense to me either. But then and I've been even saying adamantly for, like, the last couple of years, like, the New Year is in spring. Come on, guys. The New Year's in spring. I've been, like, chanting this. And here I am sitting here pondering it again. And I'm like, well, maybe it's both. Maybe it's kind of both. Like, when's the New Year? Like, everything falls off the trees and buries the seeds, right? Like, at the end of fall. That's literally why we call it fall. And the moment that last leaf hits the seeds under the ground, God's trying to call me the second I say this beautiful thing. They are getting sent to write my thoughts down. ADHD sent.
Oh, good. All right. Let's do that.
Moment that last leaf falls and blankets those seeds, that's when the rebirth begins, right? So, like, it's almost like we have this whole argument too of like you said, it's like life begins like when the head comes out. Aries, the beginning, it's undeniable. It's the start, right? You've got a whole bunch of people who are like, life begins in the womb. Like, that's a whole big can of worms of an argument right now, right? So it's interesting. It's like,
I would say that the sprout happens in the womb. I would say that the sprout happens in the womb.
Right. And I'm saying it's like the same, it's a similar kind of argument. And I don't have the answer to the argument because it's cyclical. It's a cycle. There's no beginning. There's no end. Like, spring is when the green stuff springs up out of the earth. But is that the beginning of the year? Like, Is the real New Year when the seed is fully buried and starts to germinate, or is it when we see bits of green spring forth from the ground?
Interesting.
They both are valid answers, I think.
Yeah, because I guess it will be like the same of like with like a creation of a child. Is it when?
That's what I'm saying. We got people
arguing. Is it when the beginning of the 9 months, or is it after the 9 months when the life start? Like,
right?
Yeah. But it's so interesting. You guys brought up the womb, because Virgo is the digestive system, and is the belly, and hence Jesus is born of a virgin. But in old astrology, I remember I was watching Bill Donahue, and he said that a lot of old civilizations actually started their year in Virgo as well.
Wow.
So that's a very interesting that you brought up the whole womb, and like, because Virgo is like the stomach area in the body when it comes to astrology.
And isn't Virgo like to do with harvesting or something like that, like the end of the harvest, right? Which could
interesting. Well, and it's also funny because earlier you mentioned Stonehenge. Mem, you live closer to Stonehenge than I do, and I live by the Serpent Mound because I'm in Ohio, in America. Right. And the Serpent Mound is also, I have a book about it right here, and the Serpent Mound is also a calendar of sorts. Except, you know how you said Stonehenge is built for aligning with winter solstice, like more like it's a calendar, and you could go there on the equinox of the solstice and it would line up to some degree, but it's specifically built for like the winter solstice. In the case of the Serpent Mound, the head is the summer solstice, but there's all the hippies and whatnots and lots of different groups of people who are both indigenous to this land and not, but who have strong connections to nature. They all gather at this mound here. This is like our Stonehenge, and I guarantee you there are hundreds of people there right now.
Wow.
Because the sun went down here like in the last hour.
Right.
And it's most definitely like aligned with the points. Each curve of that serpent is aligned with the equinoxes and the solstices, and it was made a long time ago. Some longer than others, but we have all kinds of those mounds all across our land over here, or the land that my family moved to. And it's evidence that people have been keeping track of this stuff a lot longer than any Roman guy said, Io Saturnalia. You know what I'm saying? People in other places care about this stuff too. I think so often our explorations are it makes sense. Like, my family's Italian. So, like, of course, like, Rome-centric. Of course, like, I'm going to look up. But the whole world is still Rome-centric because of their inquisitions. And it's like we forget that, like, people everywhere are doing all kinds of cool shit today in the Northern Hemisphere. And in the Southern Hemisphere, they're having badass, sweaty, hot summertime parties tonight. They're dancing with their girls in the heat while we're all like, You know, it's cool to think about.
It's very interesting.
Sure.
That's what I got while I was listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, man. Definitely got us thinking there, man. Jeez, it's crazy.
Take notes and stir the little.
Stir
it up a little bit every once in a while.
Nah, man, we appreciate it, man. Definitely. Always giving people some shit you might not never know nothing about. Sorry.
Say again, Liz, sorry.
Apologies. I was just going to say Mem was also mentioning like the medical astrology earlier and just the symbolism with the body. And I know that probably every time he's on here, you guys probably touch on the astrology to some degree because that's his expertise for sure. Well, syncretism involves a lot of astrology anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is interesting. I like to think of the medical astrology associated with the season, but I also like to think of like the color themes. And so, you know, this is a very root chakra season holiday. We are surrounded by the color red, and we also have color green involved. And when you think about what people associate with this time of year, you're thinking about home and you're thinking about matters of the heart, hands down. Like the color coding is like right there in front of you. And I've thought about that with colors during Halloween season. We see the black and purple, the mystic and the third eye connections, the ethers colors. And then that orange is in there. Sacral, Scorpio season, pumpkins everywhere. It's the color of the season for a reason. Like it's a great time to get down and create in all kinds of ways during Scorpio season, right? So it's like all these little color combos make sense. We look at the colors that are associated with over here, the Syrian Gateway, July 4th, the red blue shift is right built into like the flags of both of our countries and the celebrations that come around the holidays. What you got, Mom?
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly what you're saying. Look, because like I've done the bottom half red and the top half blue. And like obviously this is the root chakra, Capricorn, and this is the crown. So yeah, I was just kind of adding on to what you're saying, totally. And the whole like Santa and Satan thing being red, and because Santa is that anagram for Satan, and etc. But yeah, but what I was, like how you mentioned different cultures. Would you like me to read a little bit on like the Egyptian view of like Capricorn and how they saw it? That's only if you guys have time.
Yeah, no, that's what. Please do, because I was wondering about that. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll do that for you guys now.
Oh,
so like, it's not that long anyway. So yeah, so the Capricorn was called Kunum in Egyptian, which is spelled Khnum, and it says Kunum is one of the oldest gods of the ancient Egyptian pantheon. His origins stemming from pre-dynastic times. Kunum is a creator god who creates the bodies of all living things. Again, makes sense. Saturn, Capricorn, bones, structure. He is portrayed as a human man with the head of a ram. Again, like the whole goat and ram thing going on. His huge horn spiraling outward from his head. Kunum is a potter who shapes the bodies of all earthlings upon his will. The ancient Egyptians believed that Kunum kept the body of the king healthy and continually repaired and reinvented the human body of the king. He worked with both the Ba, the soul of the body, and the Ka, the etheric body, comprised of the fusion of human and spiritual qualities. In ancient times, Kunum was seen as the river god and was associated with the first cataract of the Nile, an area of the rocky rapids at the southern border of Egypt. He, as with so many of the deities of ancient Egypt, was associated with the annual inundation of the Nile and was particularly associated with the Nile source. The symbolism of shamanic Egyptian astrology, Kunum continually creates new forms so that we might have the means to proceed with our earthly tasks after each process of transformation and change. As we move through each death and rebirth experience, it is Kunum who weaves the new DNA into our car body so that we can integrate and open to the demands of the change that is occurring not only within but upon our planet too. It is Kunum who supports us as we open to that which next needs to be done on Earth. In traditional astrology, Kunum is associated with the Earth sign Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign of the elder and of authority. Capricorn represents the laws and rules that give form to society, and it is said to rule the legislative bodies of government, the police, the courts, and the judges. The laws and the rules and the structure of society is the province of the sign of Capricorn. The ruler of Capricorn is Saturn, the father who is so terrified that his children will usurp his power that he swallows them whole. This expression of Capricorn describes a society that hangs onto its ideas and rules that enforce those principles long after the needs of its people have changed. Such a society, such a person can be cohesive, dictatorial, and oppressive. It says, in shamanic Egyptian astrology, Saturn is Sobek, a crocodile-headed god who is an old king. Just to add to that, in ancient India, Capricorn used to be a crocodile, so that makes so much sense as well. As stated earlier, Sobek is a representation of our limbic brain and the part of us which is most concerned with survival. The resistance to change, the shadow expression of the sign of Capricorn, is reflected through this associating. At his best, Sobek understands that new energy must be expressed on planet Earth, and it is his job to support the expression of that new life with a new form. It is then that Kunum steps forward and begins his work upon his potter's wheel. So yeah, I thought I'd just read that. But you can see that everything in that is just exactly the same, like themes as Capricorn. But this is from ancient Egypt, which was way before
and
the whole like.
How did you spell that again? The name?
KH. I'll be more.
That's for you're more just asking how is it spelled.
Yeah, it's spelled KHNUM.
Okay. Cheers.
Yeah, you got it right.
You're right. You're more.
Ma'am, you said that Kunum worked with the Ba and the Ka.
Yep.
And that the Ba was, I remember learning about that years ago in school.
Yeah, the Ba is the body and the Ka is the spirit, the soul, I think. Yeah. But let me just reread that. Let me just reread that 1 second.
You already know what the syllable Ba has me thinking of.
Yeah, Ka is the body, it says. Yeah.
So Ka is the body and Ba is the soul.
Yeah.
Balenciaga. Okay, anyways.
Yeah.
that just couldn't help. That just kind of like popped in my mind a bit when you said Ba and how that's the soul and just.
That's where you get word like macabre and all that from.
Couldn't help but that.
Wow. And the car. Yeah. Oh, jeez, man.
Hot potato.
It's very interesting. Nah, it's deep because that's the way they do these things. It's just hiding behind this and hide it behind that and hide it. So you're looking over here, you're not realizing, you know.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like what I'm saying is like all these themes are like they're all just like borrowed themes from like previous civilizations, but each kind of culture adds its own twist to it, I guess. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It does feel like that for real, man. Like when you're saying it, because sometimes it's, you know, it's similar like the Greco-Roman thing. They even call things Greco-Roman for the fact that they're so similar. And see, like it can't just be them who did that. The Romans can't be the only ones who are like, okay, we'll just name this and name this that. And
they got it from someone else, and the Greeks got it from the Persians, and the Persians got it from the Indians, and whatever. Like, it just, who knows how far or how it goes back, or do you get what I mean? But like, it's just, that's the whole point of syncretism, is to show that all these different branches come from the same root, ultimately. Do you get what I mean? Rather than saying, "Oh, you're Muslim and I'm Christian," or "You're from ancient Kemetic school and I'm from a Mesoamerican Mayan school," or whatever it is, but they're all teaching the same thing pretty much, with slightly different twists and variations or cultural like adaptations. It's like, for example, you got a black Jesus and a white Jesus. Obviously, white people will associate Jesus being like them, and black people will associate Jesus being like them. It's just a natural thing for a race to do. It's not that they're maybe necessarily trying to be racist, or, for example, like whether, because personally, I don't believe Jesus was a person. So I don't associate it with a colour.
Third position.
I associate it more
third
with
position Jesus.
A way of being, or like just being a good example as a person. That's what I see Jesus as. you get what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily say, oh, Jesus was white or Jesus was black, which I don't know whether there was a historical Jesus or not. So I don't know the definitive answer to that. But I'm just saying, from my knowledge and me, like, because Jesus is like Krishna in the Indian mythology, or he's like Quetzalcoatl in like the American, or he's like Horus in the Egyptian. But it's all the same thing, but it's just different, like we're saying, different variations. So rather than people being so protective about, oh, my culture's right or your culture's wrong, is instead of seeing the differences, look at the similarities.
Deep. That's deep. Nice one, man. Jeez. Whoa. Yeah. I think we learned a lot tonight, man.
Yeah.
I think we learned a whole lot. Like, really appreciate it, bruv. And sis.
But the thing is, like we've spoke a lot about it, but trust me, there's like so much more information, like on.
Have you done
subjects? You can like connect it to alchemy about turning like lead into gold, because lead is Saturn, and gold is the sun Jesus, and you can play on that whole. That's what I'm. There is so much.
Have you got video? Have you got any videos on it? Any longer form videos on solstice and Christmas or anything?
What, me personally?
Yeah, have you got any stuff on it on your channel?
Like I said, I've got a show on like the occultism of Christmas,
right?
And I talk about it a lot in all different shows, but I don't have like a specific.
Yeah,
this is probably the first one that we've done specifically like on the solstice and like the Saturnian kind of energy. But
there's still more.
Yeah, well, there's. Yeah, I mean, it's probably similar to what I've said, but maybe there's particular kind of details that I haven't included.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we've covered the basics of it, but like, there's like probably so much more. Like, you could look at it from, so many, like the Bible and how it all relates to the Bible and.
Would you say like the different civilizations that have sort of celebrated, this, is it all from their perspective of where the sun is then and how it's moving across the skies for them? Or
I would say so.
And that's what makes the difference.
Because that's what it's based on. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would assume that most of it is for that reason. But again, like, for example, like we celebrate Christmas, but many people don't know it's because the sun's at its lowest point or whatever. So it's hard to really say whether people did actually do it for that reason or they just celebrate it because it's just a tradition. Do you get what I'm saying? So, like, it's probably a bit of both, if I'm being honest. I don't know, again,
it becomes a tradition.
The definitive answer, but I do know that it's obvious that the roots of all our celebrations and all our holidays, which are holy days, a holiday is a holy day. So, like, and they're based on particular points of the wheel. So, like, for example, like, so like you got like Christmas. Where am I? Sorry, so you got like Christmas, Easter, like May Day, and then you've got like the Jews celebrate a lot in like Libra time, like Rosh Hashanah and like Tishri. And so you got different parts of most of the celebrations are at the like the equinoctial and solstitial axes. So like the cardinal signs, basically.
Yeah.
Like the first signs of each season. But you also got like it's actually throughout the whole wheel. It just depends on the actual celebration and what its theme is. So like we was talking about Halloween earlier. But it makes sense that it would be in like Scorpio season, and because obviously that connects to the moon as well, because the moon falls in Scorpio, because the moon exalts in Taurus. So then opposite Taurus is Scorpio. So it's like to do with like the falling of the moon, and that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of info, man, that can be shared, but it's just sometimes as well. Like what I find with me is that I know, like, it's like I give the info in like drips and drabs because I like know so much of it. It's like, whereas the best way to do it would be trying to to teach people is like to formulate it in like a way where you start from the beginning of the cycle, then you can teach people like the whole cycle, rather than like jumping from here to here, which I kind of do myself, but that's only because I've studied it and I kind of,
you know, where the connections
are. It
are.
was natural to me to do it that way, but sometimes I've got to realise that other people may not understand it how I do. So you've got to be more methodical,
and that's why the stories of the zodiacs and that have come up, because it's a way of going through those signs and remembering them in an oral way. You know, someone would have invented all these little stories that they could then tell about the tale of Hercules and his 12 tasks, and they're leading the person listening through the zodiac as they go, sort of thing. There's a way of remembering it.
I think there's that.
It's like you know, the what's that prayer called in the Bible? Is it the Lord's Prayer, where it says, talks about like the daily bread and all this kind of stuff like that, like correlates with like Virgo and like the harvest season, and each one of those things are also to do with like relating to like themes in the zodiac and whatnot. But like the Bible is like, when it comes to like, I know obviously like we've been talking about like the whole Jesus thing, and like I do know about the stories of the Bible and how it connects to astrology, but like literally the whole book does, and like
for real.
There's so many like little things in there, like you think, oh wow, like it makes even more sense now, and like, do you get what I mean? It goes so deep that what I'm trying to say is, it's just like, you with this type of stuff, I'm not gonna lie, you need a lot of time on your hands to kind of grasp it all. And it's just I understand not everyone's got the time to sit down and research these things. So like that's another reason why you can't always say, oh, why don't people know this? And it's because like people have got families to feed, and you know, so yeah, we just have to try and be understanding all round. And
well, I think that's why we appreciate when you come on, man, and shed so much knowledge, because it's always like there's always the mind-blowing stuff where you're just like, oh right, you know, like linking so many different things together like that, showing the synchronicity, of course. But yeah, so all right. I want to ask this, like ask each of you this. So do you think, I've asked you this before, man, but now you know, that was a while ago. Now you've dug deeper into it all. Do you think, okay, so we've got you've given us a few different sort of aspects in terms of territorially of people regarding the skies and, you know, and telling their allegory off the back of that. Do you think like it was a group of people that just spread out and then decided to, you know, they all knew the same stories and just decided to tinker them a bit to whatever, you know, whatever nation they wanted to behold, you know? Or do you think it is literally just that much synchronicity that even, you know, nations from all around the world were telling similar stories because that was what they were all seeing the same thing going on in the sky from their perspective, of course?
I would say maybe a bit of both, because I know that, for example, not different cultures may have had the same themes but used different animals, for example, or whatever. So I think it's a bit of both. I think everyone like had their own cultural interpretation, but at the same time had some sort of influence. You know, like how they say, no idea is original under the sun or whatever. Like, that's what Nas says in one of his tunes. So, like, yeah, they say like no idea is original. So, and like because things are cyclical, I guess they're just like themes that come around in particular times. But again, if I'm being totally honest, I don't know the answer to that. But from what I can see is maybe at one point on the earth, there was like a universal kind of, not a religion, but a universal way of seeing things, which then got diluted because like a lot of people say, you know, like how you have like the golden age, silver age, bronze age, and then iron age. Well, we're currently in the iron age. So the iron age, they say that human only has 25% consciousness, whereas in the golden age, it's 100%, silver age, 75, and bronze age, 50. So because we're at like supposedly in our lowest state of consciousness, this is why we've forgotten all these things or take them literally, whereas in different ages humans understand these things in different ways. But again, that's hard to prove because we're not going to live long enough to see that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's just information that I've come across and learned. See, that's another thing I've understood as well, that like sometimes when you learn things that you can just take it for what it is, like a lot of this information, or not a lot of this information, but just things like, like an example, like dinosaurs lived 4 million years ago. I'm just using a random example. Right, we're told that, but how accurate that knowledge really is just, it either is or it is. It's like what I'm saying is it's just knowledge. It's just information. But whether that information is like valid or not, that's like another matter. So that's another thing that I always try to tell people, or I've come to understand, when you do come across knowledge or information, like particular knowledge or particular information is a bit like hard to verify. So we just have to take it as information, ultimately, is what I'm saying, rather than it being fact or not being fact.
Yeah, it's just data. Don't build your ideology around it or anything.
Yeah, so like, because like, I think as humans, I think the human in itself is a kind of too stuck in its ego. Well, we are anyway in this day and age, because I think we pretend to know things rather than to say, oh no, we don't really know. We might think it's this, but we'll say, oh, like the sun's 93 million miles away. But how do you know that? If you like, or people say, oh, they can measure it and whatnot, but with numbers, you can make a sum up that can look plausible, but whether it's true or not, or again, it's just sometimes what I'm saying is we need to take things with a pinch of salt, is ultimately what I'm saying.
Yeah, and do your due diligence to like try and decipher whether it is reality or not, like you're saying. Lindsay, do you want to chime in on whether you think, do you believe like it was a group of people from one certain area that spread out across the earth, or is this like literally different, cultures just
single source or multi-regional origin?
Are kind of at the same place that Mem did. Like, do I think one group of people spread out with their stories, or was it like a bunch of synchronicity? I think it's both. I can think of one particular religious group / order that has like intentionally spread a really specific narrative associated with that time of year and the equinoxes and their missionary work. You know, they definitely have dominated the narrative for quite some time, but at the same time, throughout the history of human beings walking the planet, we've all been trying to explain the same thing. We're trying to explain, and as you pointed out, Dan, thanks for even pointing it out, to remember these natural patterns that occur in nature that are mapped out and mirrored for us in the stars. And they're also like the patterns are mapped out and mirrored for us through nature itself, but also when people look up, you could see this projection in the sky and it would come back around every year. And like both Mem and Dan mentioned, like, you know, there's a story that goes along with it so that you can remember the order, right? I mean, these were the original calendars, and it's like everyone wishes that they knew more about what's going on. Like to this day, everyone wishes they knew what the heck's going on with the sun. People talk about the moon, right? What's going on with the sun? What's going on with even being here? The shit's wild, right? People for years have been trying to figure out what's going on up there? What's going on here? Right? It's just like a really basic question. And I think that different groups have hijacked the answer for their own benefit, but people all across the globe celebrate the fact that it's dark out today. You know what I mean? Like it's like literally that simple. Like how else do we explain it? It's the darkest time of the year, and everybody's celebrating. And it's like the other thing is that what I look at is like any belief system that exists that man's created that goes directly against nature, to me is suspect, because literally, again, everyone's just trying to explain what's going on with nature. That's what all this comes back to doing, is people just trying to explain the shit. So that's why I don't trust, certain things that just inherently go against nature. I'm like, well, that doesn't, like specifically seasonal type things. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, But yeah, I really do think that there's definitely groups that have their narratives that have been very wildly popular over time. And, there's undeniably everybody can link to some culture in their ancestry that celebrates the solstices. It's both.
I mean, so yeah, it's both in the sense that, so what you're saying is it's both in the sense that these cultures were probably celebrating, these, like we said, the cardinal points whenever they were there. But then there were, infiltrators that came and went, oh, so you celebrate as well? Okay, well, look, we'll turn this into this. How about Christmas instead of, whatever. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Control you around every corner.
Yeah, that aids in sort of making sure that you comply as well. Because, oh, okay, well, yeah, I could appreciate that you appreciate what I appreciate. So, and they move on. Everything seems smooth, and next minute, you're a slave. Foolish fiendish fool.
Well, it's just like what happened with, you had like Eula in Europe, and then Christianity came along. So you've now got these two things. So one of them was a regional, the origin was in Europe, and the other one was the origin was the Middle East, and it came into, so that's probably just been happening all along. It's, a bit of both.
Yeah, I guess it's the part where you're just like, wow, so all these people were really, there's that connection, like the thing with like Rome had who was Woden for Rome. But when they realized, I'm wondering, like, did they go like, right, that's mad. So you celebrate somebody around this time as well, and he's all about death, or he's all about the same thing as well. Or
Woden is Mercury, I think, because Woden is Woden's day, which is Wednesday.
Yeah, Mercury.
And Wednesday is Mercury Day.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then,
like, you call it Mercury. We call it Mercury, Wednesday. Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah, it's like that now, isn't it? Well, no, it's Woden's Day. No. And then they're like, hey, okay, then we'll call it Wednesday, yeah? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, because that's where the word market comes from, I think.
Meerkat. Yep.
And it's funny because in Turkish, Wednesday is called Çarşamba, and charsh is market as well. So that's what I'm saying. It's there in all the like it's just all connected, man. It's just you just got to take time to like look at it. Like even like things like, for example, like Tuesday is the day of Mars, but in Indian it's called Mangalaya. But a mangal in Turkish is a fire. So, and Mars is a fiery planet. So wow. You go around all the languages, they will all connect again. It's just the way you can explain it is just like, you know, like how different like words come out, and it's like slang words, and like a word, like you'll get a word and then you'd evolve it into something else. I kind of think that's what happened with language. It's just like, as it went round to different places, it just kind of evolved into like slightly different variations, and it just lost its original source. Like, whereas it just branched out from the root so much.
So I guess like so I guess in terms of that answer to that question, what I'm asking is the beginning, because what you're saying is that you know what it sounds like to me, how I'm interpreting it is that at the beginning there were cultures that they never met each other, but they were coming up with similar allegories, similar stories. Right. But then later on,
when you say beginning, are you talking about like the first human race, or is that what you mean?
I guess when the beginning for each sort of race, I guess, that had come up with, you know, had they come up with it from learning from some other tribe or race or whatever, or
is it inherently within us?
Yeah, is that what you mean? Yeah. You know,
again, so I would say maybe, like, for example, right? You know, like how we was just talking about like Saturn return, like how when you're 30 years old, you naturally just go through shit, right? Well, it naturally happens to us, but we're not aware of why. So I guess it's like a bit of both again. It would just be how like we're naturally in tune to like cycles of nature, but we might not know the reason, and then like once we know the reason, we can kind of come to a conclusion of why particular things happen. Or it could just be like you said, it's just passed down. It's just like an oral kind of thing that is just passed through history. I mean, again, it's a very, very tough to give a definitive, like even astrology itself, right? It's based on nature, but obviously the system was designed by man, like giving them names, particular animal attributes for each sign or whatever. So I'm not saying like, although it's based on nature, it still has influence from man in it, because
it's still art.
Yeah, do you get what I'm saying? So it's just understanding that ultimately, because you know, like philosophical things that are philosophical or like things that are metaphorical are that reason, because they're just too complex and deep to explain in normal language. So people put them in allegories or in nursery rhymes or in fairy tales to kind of
dumb it down.
Break them down or give you like a more of an easier understanding of, like, I think I've mentioned this before about like the whole Jack and Jill stories about the sun and moon. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. That's them going to the Tropic of Cancer, because Cancer is a water sign. And then and from the Tropic of Cancer, the sun can only go downwards. So that's why it says Jack fell down and broke his crown. That's the sun. And Jill came tumbling after. So that's an astrological story. But to a kid, it's just a woman called Jack and Jill that went up a hill. So it's
so
just
funny, isn't it? They're teaching you from when you're like a little, you know, when you don't even understand really. You're just singing along because you know the notes and you can mouth the words. But then that's them going, yeah, look, this is what's happening, but take it as you know. It's just a nursery rhyme to everyone. It's not actually anything to do with nature, like you're saying.
Yeah, I know. Like sometimes, like it's like you say, is like sometimes I get upset by it, and then other times I think, oh, it's nice and poetic and beautiful. Or
I think there's comedy in it, you know. To be honest, I think there is comedy in it. The fact that it can be done in that way. So, you know, like we're saying, it's so easy to hide it by just giving you it in its like sort of most simplified form in terms of for like a 2-year-old, 3-year-old could sing along to it.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Like you leave that in when you're an infant. That's just like, you know, but you don't realize the real knowledge behind it. That's why.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like beautiful, but patronizing at the same time.
yeah.
That's the way I'd explain it, because it's like, let's just take the piss out of all these peasants. Like they don't really know what it means. Like, do you get what I mean? But like, the thing is, the point I've got to is either you can you can cry about it and get mad and hate the world, or you can just accept it and just share the wisdom, which is what I try to do, and just share the information of what I know. And yeah, that's all. You can either do that or just be mad about the fact that they've been fooling us with all these stories. And if I'm being totally honest, I'm both. Because on one side, I am mad about it. But on the other side, it's like maybe the whole moral of the story is for you to find it out. That's the point of you being here. Maybe is to find out. The quest of life is to find out these stories, and then maybe once you find out these stories, like your quest has kind of been fulfilled, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, sometimes I feel like when you hear that, you know, these nursery rhymes are about things like that, it's almost like that's what's really important. Like when you think about the inversion that these people love to use on us, it's like, they made it so unimportant that it must be something to it. And then when you think about, you know, the for us to survive in life, really, it's not, you know, we know it's not what they've got us doing. It's about getting food, making sure you can cultivate enough to live on, and, you know, you got shelter and this, that, and the third. And then those sort of things will help you with that. If they stripped it back down to what, you know, how man was living without the microwaves and, you know, the can openers and all that extra stuff, yeah, you probably would find a much more benefit in those stories.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because like, sometimes I think about it, it's like, because I think about, for example, like a man living in the Amazon who's not been to school or who's not, like, don't know any of this stuff, for example, like sometimes I think, like, who's better off, like us or them? Because then I think to myself, like, I'm sure they use the seasons and the sun, and they have to do it because they got to go hunting a particular time, and they use it all like just inherently rather than being taught about it and how it all works. Do you get what I'm saying? So like, although they might not know about astrology and particular star signs and how different people are, they're still using it in their own way, because they've got to like hunt at a particular time of the season, or they've got to move locations at a particular time of the season because it gets cold. And do you get what I'm saying? So
it's like they don't need the little allegories and that. They're already
they don't need that part of it. They just know inherently, or just due to life experiences,
what's been passed down. Same way, what's been passed down.
Do you get what I'm saying? It's just like, what I'm saying is, like, although we know all this detail, The only reason we know it is because we live in a devilish system, and for us to kind of, for that system to work, it has to be done in that way. Whereas in nature, you don't have to hide anything, or there's nothing being hidden from them. They're just being who they are. Do you get what I'm saying? So like, you can look at things like, that's what I've learned to do now, is like, I always try and question my own way of seeing things from like maybe looking at how like indigenous people live, for example, in like forests or in Africa, or in like the Eskimos, like where they live in the cold, or do you get what I'm saying? Like, they use it as well, but they use it in a more, I guess, innocent and inherent way, rather than knowing about 30 degrees and the sine wave. And it's a lot like, our way of knowing it is a lot more technical, which is to use the mind. And the mind, I personally associate more with devilish things. Whereas when you know something off by heart, it's more pure because it's in your heart, hence the saying off by heart. But when you memorize things and you're trying to calculate things, to be calculative, to me, in a way, is more of a devilish thing, because if you're not just being natural, by you calculating thing, is like you're trying to manipulate something, or kind of work it out for your benefit, rather if you just do something that naturally without you thinking, it's more pure and more innocent. Ultimately what I'm trying to say,
like a child just been born,
everything's
pure.
You get what I mean? Like,
it's only when they learn that they can manipulate, that's when they're like, mommy, you do some babu. That's when they're on it, or like, right, hold on, man.
Because that's why, you know, like, obviously, like, a child only becomes a mister after 7 years old. Before that, he's a master. I don't know if you're aware of it. I think we spoke about
that's that law. Yeah, that's to do with the law stuff, right? Deep, boy. Deep, man. Lindsay, I saw you taking some notes there. Before we go, do you want to shed some light? What you got?
Well, just literally what Mem was just saying. I think going back to that whole answer of like how we can be more aligned with this being the darkest time of year, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, like a good way to be more genuine, less devilish, more from the heart. A good way to do that is to listen to your body right now and listen to its needs. Especially, I mean, as long as your needs aren't like horrible, you know what I'm saying? But most people's bodies right now are probably needing some rest.
No doubt.
So I think that's like a really good way to be like more genuine and from the heart this time of year, and more aligned with nature, you know, is to just listen to your body's needs. And also, don't forget that tomorrow is the last 2222. If you like numerology, tomorrow's the last day of the 222 portal for the year, right?
Whoa.
Like it's 12/22/2022 tomorrow.
Jeez.
Right, which adds up to 13, which adds up to 4, which is 2 times 2, or 2 plus 2. So tomorrow is going to be a heavy duty duality day, and a great time to be grateful for all the doubling down of lessons and abundance and blessings and good things that have come your way this past year, which is maybe over or not over yet, depending on what we decided. I still don't know if it's over yet.
Wow. So
is the year over?
Yeah, we still got to work that out. So we can expect something. All right, you look out for the news today, man. Yeah, we passed midnight over here, so look out for the news.
You're already there. I'm over here in America.
Something big might be happening this year. It'll probably be happening in America, man. That's where it usually happens. The numerology out there is crazy.
It's good. It's good crazy things. Doubling down energy, duality, patterns, relationships. Just put like a Americans, put a $2 bill in your pocket and imagine it doubling all your wealth or something. You know, just ideas. Yeah. Do you?
All right, that's blessed, man. Hey, we appreciate having you both on. Lindsay,
thank you.
Mem, DVG.
Thank you, brother, for having me on, man. I love it and enjoy it all the time. And,
likewise, man.
Hopefully, I don't always sound too repetitive when I come on here, because like we do cross-reference a lot in a lot of our shows. Like a lot of similar themes come up, but yeah, I'm just always here to like share what I know, and
it's always someone's first show, Mem. So you know.
What's that?
It's always somebody's first show. So there's people who always miss bits, and you know, so it's good to just keep it refreshed on people.
Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate both of you coming on.
For sure, man. You dropped some knowledge there. Please let people know how they can link up with you if they want to get more information or whatnot.
So for me, you can check out my YouTube channel, which is Conscious Minds TV. I have many podcasts on all the stuff I've spoken about today. Astrology, numerology, etymology, astrotheology, mixture of podcasts, both audio and visual. I have some of my music on there as well, which is not something that is at the forefront of what I'm doing, but it's just...
Hey, the guy can spit. I'm not even talking. Hey, he's trying to play it down, man. The guy can spit. He can spit bars, man. So
you know, I'm not saying I can't. I'm just saying that it's not the main thing of what my channel's about, but you can find some of my stuff on there. That's what I'm saying.
Definitely look out.
Yeah, and also, you can... Yeah, so you can go to my channel, Conscious Minds TV. And if you really want to see all my, like, kind of best videos I've done, I would say they're all the ones I've done for the Syncretism Society. But you have to pay to get really. But at the same time, I've probably spread all of that info out in different ways in my other videos, but it's not just like what I'm saying. The info on that is more organized. So I've got like, it's more of a series where like we learn about all the planets, then we learn about all the signs, and then we learn about all the houses, and it's a lot more organized on the Syncretism Society, my work. Whereas when I'm doing shows, I'm a bit more, how can I say, I'm just chucking little bullets here and there rather than
more sporadic
set thing.
Yeah, it still works though, man. Like, trust, you blow a lot of people away, man. Definitely. The uncommon sensors have been going off. You know what I mean?
Has Lindsay got any way of people getting in contact or?
Yeah, and I'll just say, Mem, I learn something new every single time I hear you talk. So I don't think you're doing as much repetition as you think. There's just patterns to synchronicity. That's all. We gotta acknowledge the patterns. But yeah, if you want to find me, if you have Instagram, the easiest way to find me is the Mystic Market page, which is a local market full of mystics that I run here in town. It's at MYSTIC MRKT. So it's Mystic, and the word market doesn't have any vowels. You can find me there. Nice. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge as well, man. That, like, boy, that's a good one tonight, man. We definitely, I think we opened some new doors for people to go and walk through, have a look down. You know what I mean? Been much appreciated. Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Yes.
DVG, as always, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you as well, guys.
Coming on, man. Sharing your knowledge there. Jeez, I think we started off asking like, what is this? And I think we found out now. We found out. We still don't know.
Well,
we found out it's not what we should be celebrating.
We know.
Yeah, we found out, man. There's a whole bunch of different avenues that you could go down with it.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay, so it's a mismatch. You know what I mean? Basically, like our language that we're speaking now, it's just a mishmash, a whole bunch. So don't get too carried away with it. That's basically it. You know,
just do what you're gonna do.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Sort out your Santa Claustrum on your Yule log.
Celebrate whatever
Don't splash
it is.
your Santa Claustrum all over the Yule log whilst you're getting your Black Friday shopping unpacked over your turkey. Yeah, turkey. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, that's a whole lot. Yo, it's about that time though, mother lovers. Big up all the crew that were locked in, man. You're more, Mr. Green. Good to see you, man. Shout to King Chico. Shout to DJ Locke. Big up Black Einstein, Dusty Ohms. I see you. Yeah, man. All the crew that were locked in, we appreciate you. All the silent mother lovers as well. You know, this one was another deep one. We had to do it for you before we end the year off, because I think we might be able to come back before the end of the year, but we'll have to see in it, D.
Yeah.
But if not, the next season, some shit you might not never know nothing about will be here, mother lovers. Make sure you follow the Instagram. Subscribe to the channel. Shout out to Turbo Turbolicious. Big up Robbie Love. You know what I mean? All the crew that were locked in. You know we always appreciate you coming through, man. What was it? Low 3 as well. There's a guy called Low 3, I believe, was locked in. Dom Tomato. You know what I mean? He's a crazy free runner from Australia. One of them crazy ass guys. You've probably seen his stuff all. Yeah, I don't know how they do it, man. Bones made of rubber. Yo, mother lovers. On that note right there.
Oh, hold on. It's just started snowing.
Has it? It's time to build a snowman. The snow, that's just hilarious, man.
Right on cue for the winter solstice.
That's it. Happy winter solstice, mother lovers. Now go just stay in one place for 3 days. You know what I mean?
And then possibly another 3 months.
Yeah. Contemplate what's been going on for that 3 months now. So what is that? You going to, so you're going to Aquarius, then Pisces, and then spring into action with Aries. All right. So that means you come down. Oh, wait. So hold on. Capricorn, the goat must come down, see the man, or he pours the knowledge for the man. What's going on there?
It's all water, because Capricorn's a sea goat.
A sea goat?
Aquarius is the water bearer, and Pisces the 2 fish. So that is like based on the whole Noah's Ark. Noah's flood, and the top part of it is Noah's Ark. So, but that's a whole nother
wave. Pardon the pun there. Ladies and gentlemen, man, it's about that time. You know what I mean? Some shit you might not never know nothing about. My name is Mysdiggi. That was Dan DNA, Mem DVG, and Lindsay. And guess what? Bitches and bitchettes. No discrimination. We're out.